Hey folks, this clip is brought to you by the fastest growing sports book in Tennessee, ZenSports. And code A to Z TN, ATOZ TN to earn a welcome bonus that gives you 5% cash back on your total betting volume for your first 15 days of betting. That is ZenSports. Pivoting a little bit, but still, tangentially related. There was a lot. I think somebody back here asked or said, Jason Crow says Heupel has lost his edge. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. But there's a real conversation to be had here that this overall was not a great coaching year for Josh Heupel. His system got exposed in that it is very what's the word? Predictable. It's a predictable system. I mean, it is what it is. It is set in stone. Heupel believes in it. He's going to run it no matter what. And that, damn it, we're going to do it till the wheels fall off. Well, the wheels fell off this year. The wheels fell off. Like somebody said to me on Twitter, I tweeted out when we were talking about Jalen Wright, I tweeted out, like, I don't understand why Jalen Wright doesn't play. And you could also play Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson together and have two great physical specimens. They are on the field, two great athletes that you could work with. And somebody replied and said, well, Josh Heupel's offense that's not Josh Heupel's offense. Well, Josh Heupel's offense has stunk this year. I'm sorry. Maybe he should do something about that. Maybe you could step out and change that. Maybe you could adjust. Maybe you could do something different. And you know what should be said there? Because if you don't have your Jalen Hyatts and your Cedric Tillmans, are just the wheels going to come flying off every single year if those guys aren't there? Like if you get injuries, that's not great. So that's a deep rabbit hole to go down. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, I still think it's just as simple as quarterback play. I think you saw with him and Hooker last season that it felt like the offense was a step ahead of everybody they played, right? Like there was constantly these new wrinkles. It was creative. As Tennessee fans, we're like, what? The criticism we heard about UCF, which is what we're kind of seeing this season, the same 7-8 plays over and over and over in a game. We heard that a lot. And then last season, we didn't really see that. Like they were much more creative, like we said. Seemed like they were always just kind of adding new stuff to it, evolving, showing stuff, not showing it again. I mean, and that's the reason they were so successful. I think it really just comes down to he didn't have the quarterback to execute a lot of that stuff and to get too crazy with it. And there is the fact that there were times that Heupel schemed guys open. Like there were deep shots that either Milton missed, receivers dropped. We heard during the CBS broadcast a couple of times, like, hey, Milton had a guy down the field and didn't see it, a couple of times where if those plays are executed, it changes everything. It changes the way the defense plays Tennessee. It changes the way we perceive the offense. It opens everything up. So I don't think it's there's this reason for this huge freak out of, well, Heupel was, his system doesn't work anymore. It's not going to work next season moving forward. I just think there's all these variables that went into it that just made this season kind of like a perfect storm. And we're talking about it like it's a disaster, and it could still end up being 9-4, which is no reason for celebration in year 3. And Heupel, like you kind of mentioned earlier, he's not like Butch. He's not having rings made. He's not out there celebrating it. He's talking about the season in a somber tone when you hear him talk to the media. But after the last 15 years, I don't think we can get too down in the dumps about 9-4 being a letdown season. Like we got to remember where we've been the last, little bit.
Absolutely. You have to keep everything in perspective. I mean, somebody, I don't know if it was the guy Leland on Twitter, he tweeted something like, Josh Heupel's going to go 8-4 with Joe Milton. Lincoln Riley's about to go 7-5 with Caleb Williams. Just think about that. And you're like, I mean, that's a pretty good point. It's 7-5 in the Pac-12, which is not Alabama and Georgia.
Like they had Alabama. I mean, Tennessee had Alabama. You play the same second half that you played in the first half, and you beat them in Tuscaloosa with Joe Milton. Like I don't know what happened at halftime of that game. I mean, that's going to be one of the great mysteries that we have to reflect on when we talk about missed opportunities. But yeah, for everything that this season hasn't been, we got to think about, also where we've been with some of these 5-7 Jarrett Garantano horrible offenses, trying to grind out a win against Mississippi State type stuff. And 8-5 being the best year under Jeremy Pruitt, kind of that kind of stuff. This isn't that bad.
Yeah, I hope that when you get Nico in here for 3 years and you get recruiting classes on top of recruiting classes, you start stacking that talent and give it a chance to develop. And I would say maybe defensively, maybe fire Willie Martinez, maybe.
That's an interesting one because recruits seem to like him a lot.
I know.
I think his contract's expiring. He was like one of the only ones that didn't have wasn't under contract beyond this season. He's got history with Heupel, and they were at Oklahoma at one point together. So I don't know what happens there.
They're not fundamentally sound. Like, they don't play good football. That's my main problem there. If they were all just like, incompetent kids out there, fine.
Well, I do think that kind of goes to the point that Jason's making there with 5-star recruits on the field. I mean, Tennessee has 2 5-star players on the roster. One's Nico, one's Brew McCoy. I mean, they don't have that talent there. Georgia has like 13. And then you go to 4 stars. Georgia has something absurd like 40 or 50-some 4 stars on the roster. Tennessee's got like 30. I mean, it just kind of trickles down from there. Like, that is a huge gap in talent. You got to hit the portal, obviously, but even that's kind of an uncertainty as far as what you're getting. Just because a guy hits the portal from Oklahoma, if he's not seeing the field at Oklahoma, doesn't mean he's going to be doing much better at Tennessee.
It's football season, and it's time to switch to ZenSports, the fastest-growing sports book in Tennessee, changing the bonus game with their cash rewards program. When you sign up for ZenSports with code A-to-Z-T-N, A-T-O-Z-T-N, earn a welcome bonus that gives you 5% cash back on your total betting volume for your first 15 days of betting. And if you have friends who bet on sports, share your ZenSports referral bonus code with them, and you will earn 3% of their betting volume for their first 6 months of betting on ZenSports with no cap on how much you can earn. So what are you waiting for? Stop wasting time and money on other sports books when you could be earning real cash rewards with ZenSports. Download today on the App Store at ZenSports.com. And your wallet will thank you later. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. That is ZenSports. Go download it now.
It still really comes down to recruiting, landing elite high school recruits. Those are the guys that Georgia has out there that are really making the plays. You gotta win the battles against them. Like, until you start landing top 5 classes, how can you expect to beat them? Scheme's only going to do so much, especially on defense. Like, there are no secrets on defense. You're either bigger and faster and stronger, or you're not. Like, it really comes down to that.
I mean, short of just getting better talent. I mean, Crompton on our post-game show, he also brought up that he kind of liked the DBs. He questions whether they're particularly well coached. I thought that was interesting. Obviously he has all the very detailed, like, technical knowledge there to notice things that your lay person is not going to notice. And I thought that was interesting. And so maybe you have other considerations there. I'm not saying fire the wide receivers coach, but I'm just saying that that's something the man knows what he's talking about. And he brought that up too. So
the wide receivers there, they do seem like they've regressed in this, like even Ramel Keaton. And I don't know, it almost seems like a focus issue, like that maybe the focus of the whole team, maybe that, stems from leadership. I don't know, but it does seem like they just haven't been as locked in this season. We've seen flashes. There's been flashes. There's been some good plays here and there, but the consistency has just not been there, which has been really odd to see. Because I don't know, like Crompton, but it seems like Kelsey Pope's well regarded as a wide receivers coach. He's recruited pretty well based on what we saw last season and some of the progress that had been made. I don't know. Like, that is a kind of an odd thing that's happened this season.
For sure. I just, maybe you'll see coaching changes this offseason. Maybe not. Because as you said, kind of near the beginning of the segment, statistically, the defense got better. To me, you can hawk on the defense all you want. The offense is really the story for this season. The offense, relative to what Josh Heupel has done, has been terrible. 19 points per game in SEC play, 17 points in the last 2 games. I believe 9 points in the second half between, was it Florida, Georgia, Missouri, Alabama combined?
So, yeah,
9
and that puts
half.
a lot of stress on the defense too. I mean, that's why
It
again
does.
it's the defense on Saturday night. There were things that like somebody mentioned linebacker play. Elijah Herring looks lost out there at times. Beasley hasn't been as good this season. I don't think he's been bad by any means, but it doesn't seem like he's been quite as good as last season. Like you know, especially towards the end of last season. But the dudes are gassed. I mean, they're on the field a lot. These 3 and outs in
very much
40 seconds of real time. I mean, that's taxing on a defense. So it was hard to ask for much more from them on Saturday night, especially the way Georgia was kind of methodically exploiting the zone and just not these chunk plays. I mean, they're kind of doing on long drives. That's tough to handle.
I mean, I think about it like this when it comes to the defense. I wanted Willie Martinez fired after last year too, even though it was an 11-2 season. I still wouldn't mind it. But the thing that gives me pause always talking about the defense this year is that I think it's unequivocally true that if you took this year's defense and you combine it with last year's offense, that is a playoff team. They wouldn't have lost to South Carolina. They probably still lose to Georgia, and just because that was, again, an offensive nightmare there. Georgia only scored 24 points in that one,
27,
and so 27, whatever it was. But I just think that element is what keeps me from just a lot of people like fire Tim Banks, and you're like, defense actually got better this year. It wasn't by no means was it Georgia or like quote unquote really great or anything, but I mean, dude, that would have been that team last year was a force to be reckoned with, even with the poorer defense, much less with the one that you got this year. So I don't know, not to give him a pass, but I think about that. Ben says Charlie wants everyone except himself fired for every third down given up. Did you see Georgia's third down conversion rate in that game? I'm sorry. Is that acceptable?
The one that got me was it was a 3rd and 7, I believe, and Brock Bowers was out wide, and the DB was playing 10 yards off of Bowers. And I get you're not trying to give up big plays, but if you got 3rd and 7, like that's your chance to hold them there. Force up at that point it was a field goal range. You're just giving it to him, especially Bowers. I mean, you run to the sticks. He's right there. It was an easy 3rd down conversion. Like Beck didn't even have to look anywhere else. Those are the ones that are frustrating to me. I get that sometimes you're going to get pressure and guys are going to be down the field and the quarterback's going to scramble for a play. I mean, Hendon Hooker did it to teams last season all year long. That's going to happen. It's really hard to defend that. It's just those ones where you can tell before the ball snapped, like, yeah, that's going to be a first down right there. Like that, everybody sees it.
Yeah.